Hello, good evening. Welcome. This is Hot Edition. We're live from Anisa Bata Desawe Kanda. Also live on Kesmi 107.1 in Tamale and beyond. We're live on W 93.5 in Wa and beyond this evening here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. We're monitoring the happenings as declare your assets by May 7 or you're fired. President John Dramani Mahama declares and reveals appointees who flouted earlier directive on asset declaration and then not being able to meet the deadline will forfeit their 4-month salary, which would also be donated to the Mahama Cares program. Stay with us, we've got details for you. NPP-led opposition coalition petitions the executive, legislative arm of government and the judiciary, also demanding the reversal of the suspension of the Chief Justice, Gertrude Isaba-Tukono, amongst others. Stay with us. We've got details for you here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7, also on Kesmi 107.1 in Tamale. We're live on W 93.5 in Wa and beyond. Stay with us. We've got details for you. The Ghana Health Service has reassigned programs managers, deputy directors in major reshuffle. Stay with us. We've got those details for you. Also, the Council of Heads of Assistants Senior High Schools say the senior high school food quality has improved. Exactly what do they mean by this? Stay with us. We've got details for you, plus the latest in business and sports over the next 1 hour, 30 minutes here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7, also on Kesmi 107.1. We're live on W 93.5 in Wa and beyond. For now, settle for a summary of the news. Christabel Trevor is here.
Thank you, Alfred. A very good evening to all our listeners. And let's dive straight into the news summary. President John Dramani Mahama has warned that political appointees who fail to declare their assets by the initial March 31 deadline must do so by close of day Wednesday, May 7, 2025, or face immediate dismissal. President John Dramani Mahama has also launched a code of conduct for all political appointees under his administration, spelling out new rules on ethical behavior, public accountability and misuse of office. The code, launched at the Jubilee House today, applies to all ministers, deputy ministers, presidential staffers, chief executive officers, board members, members of the Council of State, and other appointees serving under the executive. It also binds the president and the vice president. In other stories, the National Service Authority says the scheme's deployment approach has now been shifted towards posting a greater percentage of graduates to the private sector instead of the previous strategy of posting more to the public sector. The move, according to the new leadership of the service, was aimed at reducing pressure on government resources and improving employment chances for young people. Just before I go, the minority leader in Parliament, Alexander Akrofi, today led a protest march dubbed Save the Judiciary. The protesters demanded the reinstatement of Chief Justice Gertrude Tukono. Presenting a petition on behalf of protesters who were led by the New Patriotic Party, NPP, Mr. Akrofi described the President Mahama's decision of the Chief Justice as an attack on the very soul of Ghana's democracy and accused the executive of undermining judicial independence for partisan purposes. Over to you, Alfred.
Thank you very much, Christopher. It's more news on 3news.com. Make some time and visit 3news.com. This is Hot Edition. We're live on Kesmi 107.1 in Tamale and beyond, also on W 93.5 in Wa and beyond. The news that we've been monitoring so far. President John Dramani Mahama has appointed Dr. Pakwesi Beidou as the Chief Executive Officer of the Komfo Anoti Teaching Hospital in Kumasi in the Ashanti region, following the dismissal of Professor Ochre Adaimensa. Now, the decision was confirmed in an official statement dated April 30, 2025, and signed by Callistus Mahama, Secretary to the President. The letter directed the regularization of Dr. Beidou's appointment by the Ghana Health Service and Teaching Hospitals Act 1996, Act 525 as amended. The dismissal of Professor Adaimensa and the subsequent appointment of Dr. Beidou have stirred mixed reactions, particularly from the Ashanti youth. Now, what we do know is that the hospital itself has also welcomed the appointment of Dr. Beidou, Pakwesi Beidou, as the new Chief Executive Officer of the Komfo Anoti Teaching Hospital. Will stay with us here on Hot Edition. As we're learning as well, later on I'll tell you a number of the reassignments that the Ghana Health Service has undertaken in a major reshuffle. Stay with us. We've got details for you on that here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. But President John Dramani Mahama has issued a stern warning to his appointees to declare their assets by May 7 or consider themselves dismissed. Appointees who also failed to comply with an earlier directive to declare their assets by March 31 will forfeit 3 months' salary in addition to 1 month to be donated to the Ghana Medical Health Fund, simply known as Mahama Cares program. Now, the president gave the directive at the Jubilee House this afternoon when he launched the Code of Conduct for Government Officials. The code, which seeks to guide the conduct of ministers of state, heads of agencies, state governing boards, and councils, spells out a clear guideline on ethical behavior, expectations for appointees, conflict of interest, financial disclosures, and performance standards. It comes at a time when there are increasing calls to deepen governance in terms of good governance and also eschew corruption. Let's take a listen to exactly what the president said when he was launching this code of conduct earlier today.
Many of you have not seen the code of conduct yet. Don't have a heart attack when you receive your copy. Ministers of State, deputy ministers, members of the Council of State, presidential staffers, head of agencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. In my 120-day social contract with the people of Ghana, I pledged to restore discipline, integrity, and accountability into our governance. Today, we're taking an important step towards fulfilling that promise with the official launch of the Code of Conduct for Political Appointees. This code represents a bold declaration of the standards we must uphold as servants of the public. It reflects our commitment to build a government that is ethical, responsive, and worthy of the people's trust. Let me be clear. This document is not a ceremonial one. It is a living and enforceable framework that outlines what is expected of every individual appointed under this administration. Though the document often uses the term minister, it applies broadly to deputy ministers as well, to presidential staffers, to chief executive officers and their deputies, to members of the Council of State, to board members, and other political appointees within the executive arm of government. And I include myself. It applies to my vice president, myself, the president, the chief of staff, the executive secretary, all advisors, all of us are bound by this code of conduct. This is a government of shared responsibility, and there will be no sacred cows. Why do we need a code of conduct? Because we must build a new political culture, one that is rooted in transparency, humility, and ethical leadership. Ghanaians deserve leaders who serve with honor and put the public interest ahead of their personal gain. This code is designed to guide our actions and decision-making and to make clear the consequences that will happen when we fall short. Now let me highlight a few key principles and provisions of the code. All political appointees must serve the public with integrity and impartiality, must place the national interest above their personal interest, must avoid misuse of office or state resources, must declare and manage any potential conflict of interest, must eschew opulence, be accountable for every cedi or public money you spend, and be humble in service, measured in language, and respectful to citizens at all times. You are not in office to wield power. You are here to serve the people of Ghana. The second is conflict of interest. Any situation that creates a conflict between your personal interest and your official duties must be avoided or disclosed. This includes holding stakes in companies that deal with government or with your ministries, using insider knowledge for your personal benefits, awarding contracts to entities that are connected to yourself or your close family. If you're a dormant partner in any business engaging with the government, even outside your ministry, you must disclose it in writing to this office. Not through a telephone call, not through a relative. You must submit an official declaration. Failure to do so will result in disciplinary action. Number 3, interest of friends and family. Public perception matters. You must avoid making decisions that benefit your relatives or your close friends. You must not recommend them for contracts or appointments. If your actions give even the appearance of bias, you compromise the integrity of your office. Number 4, gifts and hampers. We all know our cultural fondness for gifts, but we must now draw a clear line between appreciation and influence. Appointees are prohibited from accepting gifts or favors, especially from companies or individuals with interest in governmental decisions. If a gift is received during an official engagement and its estimated value exceeds 20,000 Ghana cedis, it must be declared. And upon leaving office, the gift must be surrendered unless expressly permitted to retain it by the President. As for hampers and gift items, no government funds, including internally generated funds, are to be used to purchase or distribute hampers. The only exception is modest gifts to staff as a reward for excellence or retirement. For government entities that must distribute hampers or gifts as part of their corporate commercial policy, express permission for the budgeted expenditure must be received from the Office of the Chief of Staff. Ministerial travel. All official or unofficial travel outside Ghana must receive, and the word is prior approval.
So that's the President there.
From the Chief of Staff's office. And after each official trip, a report must be submitted on the trip, and any impressed retired within 14 days after your return. Where government is footing the bill, the trip must be necessary, it must be budgeted for, and aligned with national priorities. Retroactive approvals will no longer be entertained. Prohibition on purchasing state assets. No political appointee under this administration is permitted to purchase state assets, whether land, vehicles, shares, or buildings, directly or indirectly. If you attempt to do so and you are found out, your appointment will be terminated. We are here to protect the national interest, not to help ourselves to the national purse. Sanctions for violation. The code sets out consequences for breach, public apology, from public apology to reprimand, to suspension, to resignation, or ultimately termination. Let me assure you that these sanctions are not cosmetic, they will be enforced. And I will not hesitate to act firmly and decisively, no matter who is involved. Kindly do not put me in a position where I have to make that drastic choice. Because when it comes to protecting the integrity of this government, I will not compromise. Citizen engagement and reporting. Accountability does not end at the walls of this room and in just one code of conduct. I invite the citizens of Ghana to play a role in monitoring compliance of this code. A portal will be created for the public to report suspected breaches with guarantees of confidentiality and impartial investigation. Ladies and gentlemen, what we launched today is more than a code. It is a declaration of intent. It is the foundation of a new ethos in public service, one that values ethics over expediency, duty over indulgence, country over self. We're here to serve and will serve with honor. On the 18th February 2025, I set a deadline of 31st March 2025 for all appointees who are taking office or being nominated at the time to declare their assets. An update provided by the Auditor General to my office indicates that some of you failed to meet that deadline. For all those who are appointed or nominated before 31st March 2025 and failed to meet the deadline, you are to forfeit 3 months of salary to be donated to the Ghana Medical Trust Fund, named after me, Mahama Cares. in addition to 1 month's salary that I've asked all appointees to donate to the Mahama Cares Trust Fund. So it means that those who omitted to declare assets by the date, you are paying 4 months' salary to Mahama Cares. However, if by close of day Wednesday, 7th May 2025, any of you still fails to declare your assets, count yourself automatically dismissed. The assets declaration regime is an important mechanism to check corruption and abuse of office, and it must be respected by all. My brothers and sisters, this is a very strict code, I must admit. But if we abide by this code, it will restore the faith of our people in our democracy. Strict compliance with this code will restore confidence in the political elite and help to consolidate our democracy. And so I expect all of you to do your best to abide by the code. Let us walk this path together with discipline, with humility, and with an unyielding commitment to the people of Ghana.
That's the president, John Dramani Mahama, there earlier today during the launch of the Code of Conduct for Government Appointees. And this is one that has generated a lot of conversation and different aspects, which we're going to be touching on here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. We're also on Kesmi 107.1 in Tamale and on W 93.5 in Wa and beyond. Adam Senano is the co-chair of the Citizens Movement Against Corruption. Senano, good evening. Thank you for joining us here on Hot Edition.
Good evening.
First off, I want to start off from those who defaulted the March 31 deadline by the president to have their assets declared. Based on the president's own words today, the Auditor General has submitted a list which indeed does confirm that a number of government appointees did not comply with that 31st March deadline. The whole of April came to pass. They didn't declare their assets, and then we're in the month of May. The president says you're going to forfeit 3 months of your salary, and it's going to go into Mahama Cares Fund, and then I'm giving you up until May 6 to declare your assets. Some have asked that he should have just dismissed these people. Where does the pendulum swing for you?
Where does the...
What's your position on this particular this proposal, the position that those who hold that, look, after violating this directive, they should have just been sacked, as against being given a grace period for them to declare the assets?
Well, I think that anyone who is suggesting that the president ought to have cracked the whip immediately is just showing patriotism to say, look, Ghana needs better. And I think you will have many Ghanaians who concur that, look, we've gone through several cycles of governments not apparently taking the cause of the people seriously. And so if our recent election of a president is anything to go by, we want a president who, when he says that I'll take action, will do so. Having said that, what we don't know is whether those who have not may have faced some administrative or other challenges that may have hindered their completion on time. So perhaps we should accept this as a first red flag, first warning to all his appointees, and that hopefully subsequently he will not take these things lightly. As it is, I think that those who are feeling that there ought to have been persons, just that they have a legitimate reason to think that should have been the action taken.
But the 3 months forfeiture of their salaries, a punitive measure enough, you would say?
I'm not quite sure how to place that. In my head, I'm wondering, should the president or somebody be benefiting from when people have not satisfied procedural matters? It seems to me that it's a bit problematic, but I can't place my finger on it. I'm not too sure whether that should even happen. I think that if we want to sanction, let's sanction and let that be the clear notice we are giving without it being, raising other issues that may not actually give us the outcomes we are seeking to achieve. So I'm not too sure that this is one of those occasions where we should have taken advantage and leverage for the purpose of, as it were, capitalizing Mahama funds. Somehow, it doesn't sit completely well with me.
Well, what would have been the alternative that you would have proposed? I mean, if this doesn't sit well with you?
I think that, if we want to fund Mahama, it's a very important initiative in support of the health sector. Let's have an engagement with stakeholders, private sector persons who want to give. Let's do some fundraising. Let's citizens who, I'm not quite sure whether the first, the president himself said he was going to give, 6 months of his mandate, which was fine. But somehow, the idea that there are persons who should have been sanctioned and somehow they seem to be left off the hook, and this is rather the route we take. It doesn't seem to sit well with me. Perhaps I need to listen to the president again. Are they still being sanctioned when the money is taken?
Well, essentially, yes. The sanction is for as far as we do know now, the forfeiture of their salaries for the 3 month period that he mentioned, and then also the other measure is the grace period of up until May 6th, May 7th, in fact. But it said by end of day, May 6th, which is tomorrow, they should have complied.
Forfeiture of their salaries for the months where they have not declared their assets.
Essentially, yes.
And is that the money that's going into Mahama Cash?
Yes.
And that's where I probably need to reflect some more, but somehow it doesn't sit well with me. I think that if we are sanctioning persons under these circumstances, perhaps we should not be. If the persons have, you see, if somebody is giving a certain deadline and you've missed that deadline, I think that if the initial idea was to say that these persons should no more work because they don't seem like they have the kind of seriousness, they don't have they don't take these issues of making sure that the public space sees them as upright persons who are here to do good work. Rather than then seem to okay, we have extended the deadline, so you just make sure by that deadline you have done it, and meanwhile we'll take your money. I'm not quite sure whether that's the way to go.
Well, but let's then look into some highlights of this code of conduct for public officers and indeed government officials that was launched by the president today. One of it has to do with the ban on gifts and favors. Essentially, the president made the point that gifts received during official duties exceeding 20,000 must be declared unless permitted by the president. Conflict of interest, appointees must avoid or disclose any situation where personal interest could interfere with official duties, including owning stakes in companies that do business with government institutions, and also government spending. The code forbids the use of government funds for hampers or gifts items except for modest staff gifts recognizing excellence, retirement, and so on. Now, do these details and what the president also put out tick the box for you from the anti-corruption perspective, from where you sit?
I think that ideally these are proposals that perhaps should have been made available to civil society and persons in the anti-corruption and good governance space to review and think through before they arrive at a conclusion. If you take the first one you mentioned, that gifts above 20,000 Ghana cedis. Is that what you said?
Yes.
I mean, 20,000 is a lot of money. And if I wanted to be smart, then each time I am coming to you, I'll bring you 19,000. Then in 2 days, I come back with 19,000. I mean, so if I want to give you 100,000, I just make sure I stagger it, and then you don't have to declare it. Legally, unless there is some other. So I'm not quite sure, but 20,000 as a minimum threshold seems rather high to me. Typically, the value of what we say is a gift, which is of non-consequence, would typically not be as high as that. So, as a minimum threshold, already raises red flags for me. I think 20,000 is rather high. So, I don't know. I think that it would have been useful if there were engagements with anti-corruption, good governance experts to give some feedback on what they wanted to propose, and then we could give input before it was finalized.
Now, in the engagement, in what form should it have taken from where you sit?
Oh, I mean, once they had a draft code of conduct ready, even though I can tell you that we probably would have had two concerns. One, there's an existing code of conduct that the Commission for Human Rights and Administrative Justice put together working with the Public Services Commission, which has been around. It's something that perhaps could be updated, but it is not for a lack of a national level code of conduct. And so we probably would point that there exists a code of conduct that could have been leveraged, even though we know that in the first tenure of President Mahama, he also had a code of conduct for his staff. But I think the value of a code of conduct is to the extent that all of us subscribe to it, which would lead us to the second thing we would have pointed out, that the Conduct of Public Officers Bill is a much more critical tool that ought to be finalized, passed into law, and utilized, because then all of us can hold you accountable and can take you to court. So there's a sense in which this ticking of the box doesn't solve anything. Indeed, where we find ourselves as a country, we should not just be ticking boxes. We should be much more focused on achieving outcomes that move this country forward. So as soon as you mentioned tick the box, I'll say myself, I was shaking my head. That's not what we want our governments to do. We are happy that Mr. President sees this as an important issue, code of conduct. We would have been much happier if the Code of Public Officers Bill was looked at. Let's tighten the aspects we all believe need to be tightened, and let's pass the bill and have something in law. And if I were there at that engagement, I would say, Mr. President, can you rather give us a timeline? I mean, this is a good start. Won't be gradual. It was in your manifesto. But that does not get Ghana where it needs to go. Give us a timeline for passing the Conduct of Public Officers Bill. Then we know we are on track.
So what has been launched today cannot, in essence, replace the Conduct of Public Officers Bill.
It cannot.
That act, that you want Parliament to look into, it cannot do that.
Absolutely.
But then
it does not.
Right.
It may serve the manifesto purposes. And we are happy they had this in their manifesto. At least it shows that they see this as important. But as a country, trust me, there will be nobody in the anti-corruption and good governance space who is not going to say, but what's happening to the couple? The last we had heard about it, I know the former AG, and also that's one of the positives, I'll say. I know he was able to get it to cabinet, and then cabinet refused to move. So the previous Attorney General was able to get us to the point of cabinet. Now we should have that reviewed, finalized, and passed. It should move back from wherever it is to Parliament for it to be passed. This code of conduct, which is simply an executive policy, is not justiciable. It's not something we can take to court and hold people accountable the way we want to. The president could, because it's his That's if he's so minded and somebody brings to attention. But if you really want good governance, please, he needs to give us some timelines. And we are likely all to be pointing this out to him and the NDC government, that this doesn't quite match up to our expectations at the moment.
I see, but then if you look at the code launched today, I mean, you say it ticks a few boxes, it's a good start, but then again, it shouldn't replace the code of public, the code of conduct for public officers. But then again, there's another concern about the implementation of this particular code that has been launched today. The president says citizens should also monitor the compliance. Beyond citizens monitoring the compliance, what measures do you expect to be put in place so as to ensure that public officers, government appointees indeed comply with the details of this code that has been launched today?
I would not want to replace the Conduct of Public Officers Bill with this code of conduct. Alfred, maybe I'm not saying it clearly enough. We are happy.
No, I think you made that distinction quite clear. To the extent that you said that this was
I don't even
a step.
Want to start saying citizens should be using it. Yes, if we see, we will say. But let's give us a timeline for passing the Conduct of Public Officers Bill. We are happy, Mr. President, but give us a timeline for passing the Conduct of Public Officers Bill. That's comprehensive. That covers all the issues we are concerned about, and all of us, civil society, citizens, will be on board. And I think that this country needs to move much faster. So we are happy, but Mr. President, let's do much more.
And in much more, talk about the verification and publication, which has been one of the major demands you make.
Absolutely, yes. So that then assets declaration becomes fit for purpose. And that's part of the tightening up of the current Conduct of Public Officers Bill. I'm not quite sure they'll talk about verification and publication in this, and I've not read it, so that's why I can't speak to it. I probably will do that overnight. But I doubt that they have verification and publication in it. So are they going to ask their officers to publish? Will it be on a website the way we want it so that anybody in Ghana can go and cross-check? I mean, I have a feeling that this will not be as comprehensive as taking the COPO, completing it, passing it into law, and let's all begin to monitor. That way would have made substantive progress.
And you talk about timelines for you, civil society as well, because this was one of the demands you made and you're still making, that the Conduct of Public Officers Bill be passed into law. What specific timelines do you have?
Urgently, if even within the next 3 to 6 months, they can work on it, make it a priority of Parliament, leverage what they have just done and say, not just this, but we are going to work together with the Parliament of Ghana to pass into law over the next 6 months, the COPO. That definitely would bring us where we want to be as a country.
And we shall have to find out whether the work done by the previous parliament, as we do know, is either going to be continued or the entire process will have to start again, as we know that...
No, in the case of the COPO, what it was the government sponsored, so the AGs had worked on it, brought people on board, then went to cabinet. It was not going to move from cabinet to get through the internal legislative processes of Parliament. So whichever state it is in, with all the consultation that was done, it's a good state to just have another stakeholder engagement to, enhance it. Is there anything else we want to do? Finalize it, get cabinet to endorse, and move it to Parliament. And I'm sure that if they had to do a stakeholder engagement and get cabinet's approval to move it to Parliament, that could be done within a month, and then allow Parliament to use its processes to try and finalize it. I think a 6 months horizon is sufficient to get this out of there. And it will stand as one of the most serious achievements of this government if they apply themselves to it.
I do appreciate your time, sir. Thank you so much.
And thank you very much, Alfred.
Adam Zanano is the co-chair of the Citizens Movement Against Corruption. They're still live here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7, also on Kesme 107.1. We're live on W93.5 in Y and Beyond. Keep your thoughts coming through. It's a subject that a number of you have been expressing your views, comments, and opinions on our Facebook page at 3FM 927. Read a few of your comments as we go on. But a coalition of opposition political parties led by the New Patriotic Party has petitioned the three arms of government, the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary, as they mount pressure on President John Mahama to reverse the suspension of the Chief Justice, Gertrude Tukono. The Chief Justice is currently on suspension as a 5-member committee probes into a number of petitions seeking her removal from office for stated misconduct. Numbering in the hundreds, the parties, the New Patriotic Party, LPG, PNP, and NDP, marched through some principal streets of the capital to present their petitions demanding a halt in the removal as an attempt by the president to oust the Chief Justice and put in her stead a Chief Justice who will be sympathetic to the NDC. So you can listen to Alexander King, who is minority leader, presented a petition to the Jubilee House, which was the point of termination of the protest earlier today.
We believe that what is happening is not good for us. There must be an end to this issue of you do me, I do you. There must be an end to retaliatory politics. In Ghana today, all of us as political actors have a story to tell. Where do we end the vicious cycle? It is not yielding to the whims of hawks and hardliners in our respective political parties that will make us better political leaders. We believe that the hawks must be pushed back onto the fringes so that the centrists can take the center stage for the good of our country. In today's era of social media, you cannot control what gets onto the streets, and this democracy must be protected and safeguarded. So, my respected brother and friend, this is to you. The language is very respectful and decent and expresses our views because we know we are addressing the president. We hope that it shall receive the needed support for the Chief Justice to go back to her office and do her work. Thank you so much.
Alexa Apenyomaking, the Deputy Chief of Staff, Stan Dogbe, who received the petition on behalf of the president, had this to say.
In the office of the president, and on behalf of the president, I'm delighted to receive the petition from the coalition and it will be duly presented to the Chief of Staff for the attention of the president. Let me say that we are happy that your process started this morning and has ended very peacefully. That in itself is a very strong message about the democracy that President Mahama wants to instill in our dear country. If it were the case like this over the past 8 years, I'm sure that the retaliatory politics that you talk about wouldn't have been the case. You referencing retaliatory politics is an admission that the 8 years of President Akufo-Addo and Mahama Bawumia were not the best for this country. You can be assured, however, that President Mahama, as every Ghanaian knows, is not that politician. President Mahama does not believe in retaliatory politics. He's described as, too much of a father for all kind of presidents, and everybody knows that. Whatever actions that are being taken now, whatever decisions that are being taken now, as everybody knows, is in line with the provisions of our 1992 Constitution. Indeed, before President Akufo-Addo left the presidency, he himself had started a certain process where issues were brought to him about the Chief Justice and he referred them to the Council of State. And that is what President Mahama has done. It is not about retaliating on something that was done by the previous administration against President Mahama or the NDC. So the process that is ongoing is constitutional, and I do believe that if the committee that has been set, completes its work, whatever decisions that they make, just as the Council of State's advice to the President was binding on him, it will be binding on him. I can assure you and the people of Ghana that we appreciate the fact that just as government ensured that you went about your demonstration peacefully, there was one also last weekend, peacefully without any attempt at preventing you from expressing yourselves. We will continue to allow for that peaceful expression of ourselves in this country under President Mahama. Nobody is going to inhibit or stop anybody from going that. That should tell you that President Mahama, in less than 120 days, has demonstrated how he is going to save the democracy of Ghana. He's going to grow the democracy of this country, and we are going to be together.
And that's Standard there, also addressing the leadership of these protesters earlier today. Now, these are the 3-point demands, and that's NPP and there's opposition political parties who protested on the principal streets of Accra today. This 3-point demand they're making. First, President Mahama should immediately reverse the suspension of the Chief Justice. 2, President Mahama must affirm publicly that he is still committed to upholding the Constitution, which includes the separation of powers. 3, President Mahama's posturing towards the judiciary is aimed at amending the Constitution for him to seek a 3rd term. And they say that he should come and clarify if that's not the case. And these are the 3 points, as far as we do know, captured in this particular petition. And on the first point about the suspension of the Chief Justice, I engaged Professor Bafo Ajimendua, who is a governance expert, a former advisor on governance to the United Nations, on whether or not the president had done anything wrong in this particular regard, and then also how the issues are playing out with respect to Article 146. And this is what he had to say. That's the point you make. Nothing done wrong.
Oh, correct. It's the same thing. I mean, when in the previous government, some petitions were sent to President Akufo-Addo, he indicated that, look, I'm just a conveyor belt. It came, because that's what the Constitution says. You remember that? So I had a problem with that, by the way, because I've made the argument that even the threshold for really establishing the prima facie, I think is wrong. I mean, if we are really treating a Chief Justice as a head of one constitutional body, EC, or any other kind of institution in our democratic system, I think it's wrong. I place the Chief Justice very high because these 3 really make up what democracy is all about. That's what I'm thinking. And I believe that we should create a different threshold for removing these individuals, and especially making sure that each of them will be insulated from the other.
As Professor Bafo Ajimendua there. Let's go on to the telephone now, and lawyer Justice Abdullahi is joining us. He is a lecturer and also a lecturer at the UPSA Law School and also a private legal practitioner, and he's joining us on telephone. Lawyer Abdullahi, good evening. Thank you for joining us.
Good evening, Ocansey. Alfred.
Thank you for making the time to join us. It's been a while. It's good to hear from you.
Well, you get another mandamus against me if I don't show up.
Indeed.
So,
Indeed.
I have no choice.
Thank you. Also with us, Dr. Jonathan Asantiochiri is a lecturer at the senior lecturer at the University of Cape Coast and also a political analyst. Doc, good evening. Thank you for joining us.
Good evening, Alfred. Good evening to my colleague out there.
And I want to start off with you, Lawyer Justice Abdullahi, on the demands by the opposition political parties who protested today. They are asking that the president should immediately reverse the suspension of the Chief Justice. I mean, how does this strike you?
I think that the demand generally looked at collectively is a bit confusing. If you take into consideration the fact of
the various commentaries made by the MPP right from the moment that this issue became matured and became a public issue. And naturally, you cannot take away the positions as outlined in this in the petition as against the public pronouncements made by members of the MPP into account. I mean, the two, I believe, are related because it is the combination of all the comments made on mainstream media by individuals and indeed by the parties that put together resulted in the petition. So I would like to deal with it from that collective angle and ask, what is the basis for this call? There must be a reason for the call. You cannot just simply ask the president to revoke an order made less than 2 weeks ago without providing any basis, compelling reason for making to change the mind of the president. I mean, now if the president indeed simply follows any call on him and acts in accordance with that call, then there will be no point in him being a president. He must be convinced about a decision. And in this particular decision, the Council of State, based on a constitutional provision, called on the president to act in a particular way. And that way is what the president relied on to literally decide on what happened, i.e., the Council of State recommended the suspension. The president simply followed. The president doesn't even have an option out of it. If you read the necessary constitutional provisions, the president acts based on what the Council of State literally advises him to do. And so if you ask him to revoke that, yes, I agree, the president has the power to revoke it. But there must be a compelling reason. And even though the Constitution doesn't provide for this, but if you are asking the president to revoke it, the president would necessarily have to consult the Council of State. And that part of it is not provided by the Constitution. But once you acted on the advice of the Council of State to suspend the person, you are necessarily mandated to also seek their opinion before you revoke that suspension. You cannot just act arbitrarily. That would then play into the earlier call by the members of the MPP and some other persons stating that the president is acting arbitrarily because he's in breach of Article 296, and which I have completely disagreed with, and I have made my position known clearly on that all those calls and those positions, arguments being made, are completely flawed. There is no substance in any of those arguments. And I have thrown a challenge out there that anyone, and when I say anyone, I mean whether MPP or any other political party, any lawyer for that matter in Ghana, who believes that the president in the quest, in fact, in this whole enterprise of the removal of the CG, whoever believes that the president has acted unconstitutionally within the entire space of beginning from the time that the petition was sent all the way to today, whoever believes that any act of the president is wrongful or unconstitutional, that person, I'm throwing a debate out there, that person should come, let's engage in the public discourse, public debate, for us to go into these matters to determine which part of the provisions of our Constitution has been.
I see. You talk about a compelling reason why. If you listen to the MPP over time and even before today and even after the protest today, they say that yes, it is law. The president is following the dictates of the Constitution, as you have also just elucidated. But the law is being politicized. And the rule of law is being weaponized in having the Chief Justice removed because of certain comments that the president made before he was elected president, before December 7th, during that particular campaign period. That's not compelling reason enough?
I think that is quite a childish argument to make, simply because on a campaign promise, the president makes a comment. I do not see how, and I don't even know the particular comment in reference. I think that particular comment has to be brought up, so we interrogate it. I've never heard the president saying that he's going to remove the Chief Justice anyway. I've never heard the president anywhere at any point in time from year 2016 to date stating anywhere that he is going to remove the Chief Justice or he's going to engineer a petition for the removal of the Chief Justice. I've never heard anywhere, whether remote, direct, indirect, in any manner, form of shape, that can be a basis to conclude that the president is interested in the removal of the Chief Justice. I've never heard that one. But I'm open-minded about some of these subjects. I'm willing to listen to some of these issues so we can interrogate it further. I've never heard that anyway. And so that's the first point. The second point is that, assuming that any of these has been said by the president, would that take away a legitimate call on the judiciary to account in any shape or form for their stewardship? Is that wrong? If someone believes that something has been done wrongfully, either by the CJ or any member of the judiciary, which he believes is unconstitutional and wrong, and that person has petitioned, and the constitutional steps are being followed, not the person being persecuted, but the constitutional steps are being followed, and they are being followed in accordance with the dictates of the Constitution, how would that in any way justify a conclusion that simply on the altar of an earlier comment made by the president, the very tenets of our Constitution should be thrown away? How do you even marry these two arguments? That the perception, is it a perception that we are dealing with, or a comment made by the president, or the issue of accountability, for which reason the judiciary is is arguably one of the most respected institutions relative to the two other arms of our government, our governance system?
I see, but yes,
right. How would you argue with this? That argument is very difficult for me to swallow.
But Dr. Atanchochi, you cannot also discount the politics of things, as you know, the MPP is also espousing, to the extent that if you listen to Professor Bafo-Agyemang-Duah, he also indicates that because clearly there are dictates of the separation of powers in our Constitution, but it is the president who also appoints the Chief Justice through other layers in consultation with the Council of State, and then also Judicial Council comes in, Parliament also plays their role in that process. In his view, you cannot discount this matter also being subjected to some politics, isn't it?
Certainly.
I completely agree. Sorry. Alfred.
No. I want Dr. Atanchochi to answer that, and I'll come to you, lawyer.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, certainly that is very political. If you look at the process itself, I'm of the view that the mere fact that somebody who joined the Supreme Court somewhere 2019 met senior colleagues at that particular place and still made the Chief Justice not to subject this current one that has been suspended to any kind of example. But if you look at it from that perspective, then it means that the nomination and appointment of a Chief Justice in itself is very political. It is very, very political, because if somebody joins the Supreme Court 2019, 2021 or so, she is made the Chief Justice. So those that she went to meet, is it the case that she knows the law far better than them? Or it is the choice and the decision of the appointee? So if that is the preference, then it is political, if you ask me.
And so the removal, or as it were, any process to have the Chief Justice removed is also subjected to a political interpretation, is it not?
Choosing to eat a particular food in itself is a political decision. In all of it, it is very political. But you see, once you are following the constitutional dictate, then it means you are going by a certain procedural pattern, which in itself will mean that you are going according to the rule of law. The decision to accept the petitions themselves in itself is political. It's a political decision on the part of the president. We don't have to mix politics or decisions that are political with partisanship, where they see nothing wrong with the other side, they see everything wrong with the other. In this case, I see that the MPP itself, under the leadership of Mr. Akrofi Ocansey, They have rather obfuscated the issues. They have rather made the woman's case a little more worse. Because for me, it appears to me like the woman is supposed to be perceived as an MPP, for which reason they are so bent on being unthinkable. To the extent of listening to Mr. Afeni-Markins today, before he presents the petition, I cringed. I said, did he actually utter this particular speech? Because if he did, I don't think that is a mark of a good minority leader. When I say to somebody who say, oh, you detest the president, no. To think, to have that such, unconscionable guess that Mr. Mahama is doing A, B, C, and D to seek a third term, that would never happen in this country. That will never happen in this country. When he is done with his term, Mr. Mahama, as we have known him from the past up till now, he will not in any way hazard that guess. So I see that is a very wild political, I don't know which words to use for now. I mean, it's a wild goose chase that the minority is hazarding. And it is quite interesting. It's just so ridiculous. In fact, with you, if it's the kind of leadership that Mr. Afeni-Markins is going to provide for the MPP in opposition, I think that they will have to have a rethink. Because the MPP that look at where they went when they went to Supreme Court, where were the numbers? It is because they are using some kind of false means to create some relevance for themselves, whether individually or corporately. And that, for me, is something that is very, very strange to me, because I don't think that this is the kind of leadership the MPP needs. Because there is nothing at stake. The politics of it, the partisan politics of it, I don't think that is going to help the suspended Chief Justice in any way. And as long as moderate minds believe that what the president is doing is according to the dictate of the Constitution, there's nothing else that they can do. As for the political interpretation, they have liberty to do so, because anybody at all can have a political, interpretation, whichever way you look at it.
Well, no.
But that does not in any way stray away from the Constitution that the president, in consultation with the Council of State, are, progressing with the whole thing. And you see, Alfred, the point also ought to be made that if you look at the constituents of the committee, even mentioning Mr. Domlevo alone, there is a person that, if indeed the woman is not guilty, you do not expect him to say that the woman is guilty. You don't expect Domlevo to tell you that the woman is not guilty, and you tell that he's guilty. You won't do it. That is the kind of person, a man of integrity. So it means that the president wants the process to be marked with huge integrity, so that when everything is said and done, all legal luminaries, all common-minded persons can read in the lines. No, the woman is not guilty as charged. Yes, the woman is guilty, and she must stay suspended, or a new Chief Justice be nominated and confirmed. I mean, that is how it should be. That is rule of law. It's just unfortunate. I wouldn't wish that to my father anyway, but it's just unfortunate that they have gotten to where they've gotten to.
I do appreciate your time on this. Thank you so much. Jonathan Atanchotre is a senior lecturer, University of Cape Coast, a political analyst, joining us here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. On the third demand that this petition that was submitted by the protesters earlier today, led by the minority leader Alexander Afeni-Markins, to the presidency, what we do know, based on what Richard Ahiagba has been telling the media, is that they are demanding that President Mahama's posturing towards the judiciary is, in their view, aimed at amending the Constitution for him to seek a third term. Well, Godwin Ejiji-Tamaklo is the director of legal for the NDC and acting CEO of the NPA, had this to say to that.
The point that the reason why President Mahama has nominated these 7 Supreme Court judges, if approved by the Parliament, is that he wants a third term.
Very ridiculous.
My learned senior Afeni-Markins, what is happening? Senior?
This information is deliberate.
I mean, deliberate. Deliberate. Is it misinformation or disinformation?
Disinformation.
Disinformation. Okay. Look, why would a member of parliament deliberately court public disaffection for a president who is sometimes called his friend, right? On the basis of deliberate, I call it misinformation. Because one, President Mahama has already publicly said that he has a farm in Savannah region that he can't wait to go on retirement and go to his farm.
That's Godwin Ejujita Maklo there. Before we go for business, there's some news just coming through from the Ghana Health Service. They've announced a major reshuffle of its senior personnel, reassigning several program managers and deputy directors nationwide. The reassignment, which took effect from May 19, 2025, which is expected to take effect from May 19, were communicated in a notice signed by the Acting Director General, Professor Samuel Kaba Akoyeri. Now, according to the notice, the reshuffle decision forms part of ongoing efforts to strengthen leadership and service delivery within the health system. Now, what we do know is that first on the list, Dr. Kwame Amponsa-Chiano, who is the Deputy Director, Programs, has been reassigned as Deputy Director in charge of the Ghana Health Service headquarters operations. Dr. Hilarious A.K. Abiwu, who was Deputy Director in the Northern Region, has been now assigned as Programs Manager at the Ghana Health Service headquarters. Also, Dr. Mrs. Selom Kochuachi, District Director, Lankontanan Municipal Assembly in the Greater Accra region, has been reassigned as Programs Manager to the Ghana Health Service headquarters. Dr. Emmanuel Tevi, Deputy Director in the Ashanti region, has been reassigned as Programs Manager also for the Ghana Health Service headquarters. Dr. Andrew Ayim, Deputy Director Policy Planning, who was at the headquarters, has been reassigned as Deputy Director to the Ahafo region. Dr. Kezia Malm, Programs Manager for the Malaria Control Program, has now been reassigned as Acting Deputy Director to the Ashanti region. Dr. Stephen Eisiado, Programs Manager at the Ghana Health Service headquarters, has been reassigned as Acting Deputy Director for the Northern region. Dr. Yao Edusi Poku, also Programs Manager, Ghana Health Service headquarters, has been reassigned as Programs Manager also in a different division within the Health Services headquarters. Dr. Efua Kome, Acting Programs Manager, NCDs, has been reassigned as District Director, Lankontanan Madina. So, and finally, Dr. Benedict Okokwao, currently Manager in charge of medicals, and then also Medical Superintendent, Ankafo Leprosarium, has been reassigned as Medical Superintendent to the Central Region Ankafo Leprosarium. So that's the details. We have 13 names so far in this statement from the Ghana Health Service. The full complement of it you'll find on 3news.com. We're back with the business news. Bess Makewusa is standing by with the details after this quick break. Stay with us.
Ghana. It's a new year and Bills Microcredit is here to support your dreams. If you're not working but want to start a business, don't let money stop you. With just your Ghana card, you can get a loan to turn your ideas into reality. Already running a business? Need more capital? Or are you a salary worker looking for extra funds? Bills offers fast and easy loans with no collateral, no deposit, and no SUSI savings required. Wherever you are, whatever you need, Bills makes it happen. Call Bills Microcredit today. Call 0596 920 833 or 0302 200 390 and get started. Bills is licensed and regulated by the Bank of Ghana. Bills, financing your needs. Terms and conditions apply.
Hello, good evening and welcome to the business segment on Hot Edition. Coming up tonight, Public Interest and Accountability Committee, PIAC, warns government's $1.25 billion debt to GNPC, raises alarm over fiscal transparency and threatens corporations' long-term viability. I am Bismarck Ausa. Thanks for your company. Now to the very first story. Ghana's growing reliance on the National Oil Company for off-balance sheet borrowing has pushed its indebtedness to the Ghana National Petroleum Corporation, GNPC, to a record $1.25 billion. The Public Interest and Accountability Committee, PIAC, warns the trend threatens the financial health of the corporation and undermines its core mandate. The following 3 Business News Desk report has more. Government now owes the Ghana National Petroleum Corporation a staggering $1.25 billion, according to the latest report by the Public Interest and Accountability Committee, PIAC. The debt, which has ballooned from just over $318 million in 2021, reflects growing unrecovered budgetary support and new guarantees issued by GNPC on behalf of various state institutions. PIAC, Ghana's petroleum revenue watchdog, says the continued use of GNPC as a quasi-fiscal tool is unsustainable and threatens the corporation's long-term viability. It warns that the corporation's increasing financial exposure risks derailing its primary mandate in Ghana's oil and gas sector. PIAC is therefore calling for an immediate halt to the issuance of new loans or guarantees by GNPC without corresponding payments. The committee insists that such off-budget arrangements, though politically expedient, compromise transparency in the management of petroleum revenues and expose GNPC to mounting financial risks. And that was a 3 Business News Desk report. Now, in a bid to attract more investment into Ghana's energy sector, the Petroleum Hub Development Corporation is pushing to slash the time it takes for petroleum companies to register from nearly a year to just 1 month. The corporation has brought together key energy sector agencies to agree on ways to simplify the registration process. Chief Executive Dr. Tony Orbin said the aim is to remove delays and make it easier for investors to do business in Ghana's energy sector.
When you want to attract investment into these areas, you don't want them to go through the old-fashioned bureaucratic, the inertias that investors go through. Our studies have shown that to get permits, all the permits to establish a petrochemical plant, you may have to spend over 300 days. Which investor does that? Sometimes 400 days. EPA, Petroleum Commission, National Petroleum Authority and all that. So we are here to try and see how we can cut down on the bureaucracies so that we will shorten the permitting time without compromising the quality or the requirement of a permit. The idea is very, very simple. Bring all these regulatory agencies together, let's dialogue and see how we can reduce the lead time in trying to process permits for the investors who will not have time to wait.
And that was Chief Executive of the Petroleum Hub Development Corporation, Dr. Tony Orbin. Still within the sector, Acting Chief Executive of the National Petroleum Authority, NPA, Godwin Edugitamaklu, has reaffirmed the authority's commitment to maintaining high fuel quality standards across the country. According to him, a dedicated team of inspectors is actively monitoring supply chains to ensure strict compliance with product specifications.
We have a robust team of inspectors out there in the regions, monitoring the various petroleum service providers to ensure that they work in strict compliance with our rules and regulations, whilst also ensuring that at all material time there's product availability, product quality is not compromised. And so basically this is what we're doing. So it's a priority thing for the president, cabinet, my minister. So it is something that we want to put everything in to look. My president wants to leave a legacy of reliability in petroleum products and, more importantly, cheaper ones to make it easier for our people. The thing with petroleum products is that it affects everything.
And that was Acting Chief Executive of the National Petroleum Authority, NPA, Godwin Ediji Tamaklo. Now, as part of efforts to reduce the cost of doing business in the commercial shipping sector, Chief Executive of Ghana Shippers Authority, Professor Ransford Jampo, has held talks with air freight stakeholders at the Kotoka International Airport. The interaction follows similar engagements with stakeholders in the sea and land freight sectors. Professor Jampo cautioned shippers against engaging in unlawful activities.
We are talking about the many charges that are slapped on the kinds of things that they try to ship. And then our new law mandates us to be able to look at those charges and to negotiate their downward review. And so the shipping service providers are always, I think every year they are required to bring to us charges that they want shippers to be paying. And then we will look at it, do our own investigations, do our research, see what happens in other countries, other neighboring countries, with the view to determining whether or the charges that they want to, levy on the products of shipwrights are legitimate or not legitimate. Where they are legitimate, we will tell them to go ahead. Where they are not legitimate, we review it downward. And we'll continue to sensitize shippers about the do's and don'ts of shipping, so that they wouldn't also be doing what is wrong and be found at the wrong side, of the law. If we sensitize you and you don't listen and you are caught, then you'll be on your own.
And that was Chief Executive of Ghana Shippers Authority, Professor Ransford Jampo, ending the business segment on Hot Edition with me, Bismarck Awusa. For more business stories, please check out our website, 3news.com. Thanks for your company. Sports is next with Oreku Ampofu. Please stay.
Everything to me. She's always been there for me. My coat of many
Mothers are the beacons of our lives, guiding us through life's challenges with their selfless love, tireless dedication, and unwavering support. As we celebrate Mother's Day, TV3 and 3FM in partnership with Airport View Hotel invite you to a celebration of motherhood at Dining with Mama, happening on the 11th of May 2025 at
Welcome back. Now, the Minister of Education, Haruna Idrisu, has announced plans to rename C.K. Tedam University of Technology and Applied Sciences. This comes as part of a broader move to rename selected public universities across the country. A bill to that effect will soon be laid before Parliament. He made the announcement during swearing-in of the Governing Council of the university earlier today.
It's important that the curriculum of your programs are tied to industry. And I should also conclude by drawing your attention that the government has taken a decision to review the names of some of the universities. And therefore, I will be presenting a bill to Parliament after a committee that I'll be putting in place review it. It is not to diminish the contribution of any individual, particularly names that were conferred on those institutions, but to reaffirm the foundational ethos and historical identities of our tertiary institutions. The decision is not taken lightly. We've had extensive consultations with the academic community and stakeholders, traditional rulers, alumni associations, students, and civil society. And therefore, the name C.K. Tedam University of Technology and Applied Sciences is likely to change, probably to what the original intentions were. And it will run through a number of public universities in Ghana. So there will generally be a new bill to look at the renaming of many of the public universities that were done under the tenure of President Nana Akufo-Addo. It is not to say that those individuals are not deserving of it.
That's the Education Minister, Haruna Idrisu, there. Now, engineers constructing the Western Railway lines are warning that illegal mining activities along the rail lines have significantly increased operational costs. Meanwhile, the CEO of the Railways Development Authority, Dr. Frederick Apple, who has been on a familiarization visit to the Western region, assures that the project is on schedule and will be completed in 2028 as promised by the President. Irama Smith has more.
The 78-kilometer single standard gauge Western Rail Line, stretching from Manso to Univalley, commenced in 2022. Estimated at 500 million euros, The project, being undertaken by Amandi Investment Limited, was slated for completion within 42 months. Following his appointment, CEO of the Ghana Railways Development Authority, Dr. Frederick Apo, was on a working visit to assess its status, as work had been suspended due to funding issues. He assured of the completion of the rail lines by 2028, as promised by President John Dramani Mahama.
The purpose of this visit, again, is for me to formally see the line. I have seen the line, but through informal inspections. There is a formal inspection with my authority and with my technical team, as well as, of course, consultants and contractors alike, for us to all understand the challenges, as well as communicate the government vision for the Western Line. I will tell you this. We want to commission Western Line by 2028. That is the present vision. So it means that we've got work to do on the financing side, as well as, of course, our ability as a government to work with Amandi for them to resume work and agree on the deliverables.
Illegal miners have been operating with impunity along the rail lines at Amanteng, causing environmental degradation and obstruction of the drainage systems and sections of the narrow gauge lines. They have blocked a drainage to create a small dam to support their mining activities. On our way to Isioso, the team encountered another surprising development. Illegal miners had laid water pipe holes under the rail lines. Deputy Residential Engineer of Aya Engineering, Lawrence Nyako, says these illegal mining activities have substantially increased operational costs.
The impact of the railway line during the Galamsey issue affects our construction sector. At the same time, it also increase the cost of the project. The contractor is encountering a lot of difficulties during construction stage. And this information has been already communicated to most of the concerned people. The police are always patrolling, but at the moment the police get in, within 20-30 minutes, they will come back again. So it's a routine issue. So if the security are trying to involve, it should be a routine security issue, whereby the security know the right thing to do better. I think that's what we can say.
In a related development, the general manager of the Ghana Manganese Company, Joseph Ampon, who met the CEO, expressed the desire of his company to collaborate with the Railways Development Authority in reviving rail transport for their materials, preferring it over road transport.
It's only the recent times that the amount of order we want to send, Ghana Railways is not able to send it to the port. And that's why we resort to trucks. To make railways to transport or haul all the material that we mine here to the port is what we support. Actually, we want to freeze the road. When you were coming, I believe you met a lot of trucks on the road. That is not our intention. That it's not something that we want. But because we don't get the support from Ghana Railways, we have no alternative than to do that. So if we get the help from Ghana Railways, I think this many trucks on the road issue will be reduced.
That's a Rama Smith there, bringing an end to Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7, also on Kesmi 107.1 in Tamale and on W 93.5 in Y and beyond. On behalf of the rest of the team, we do appreciate your company. Join me at 10 p.m. on TV3 for Ghana Tonight. My name is Alfred Ocansey. Have a good evening. The drive continues.